Today, we're going to take a look at the 2024 governor's prediction for the month of September. And we've only got 11 states that are going to have elections this year, but only a few of them could potentially be competitive. And even though we're only about 2 months out, we still have a couple of primaries to get through. So there's not going to be many changes since my last prediction, but let's take a stroll through these states. Let's start with the safe states for the Democrats. And these are expected to be over a 10-point margin. They've got one state that's going to be Delaware. This is an open seat to replace term-limited incumbent John Carney. And Republicans last won election for governor here way back in 1988, so it's safe to say that this is a fairly blue state. So most of the focus is going to be with the Dems, and their primary is actually coming up on September 10th. And it does look like it could be a battle between Bethany Hall Long, the lieutenant governor, and Matt Meyer, he's a county executive. Now, on the Republican side, they also have a primary to get through. There's not really any polling, but they do have a more moderate candidate, Mike Ramone. But in the general election, given that it's an open seat and a late primary, there's potential for something to develop. Every once in a while, states get in the mood for some change, and they might do it for their governor. So if something develops late, we're going to follow it. But for now, this should be over 10 and safe for the Democrats. Now let's do the safe states for the Republicans, and there's a lot of them. We'll start in the Northeast in Vermont. We've got incumbent Phil Scott running for his 5th term. He's going to face Esther Charleston, the Democrat. And even though it's a very blue state, Scott is a very popular liberal Republican. He won by more than 45 points just 2 years ago. Even if it's way less than that margin, he should still win this very comfortably by way over 10 points in a safe margin. Then let's do West Virginia. This is an open seat to replace Governor Jim Justice, who's term limited and running for the Senate. Republicans have Patrick Morrisey, the current Attorney General. Democrats have Mayor Steve Williams. Even though in the past this state was open to electing Democrats for governor, those days might be over with. Now again, given that it's an open seat and Steve Williams might run a more conservative type of campaign for the Democrats, maybe Morrisey ends up flopping late and it does get more competitive. But for now, it's far more likely this is going to stay safe for the GOP. Then we can go to Indiana, and we've got another open seat. We've got U.S. Senator Mike Braun for the Republicans against Jennifer McCormick for the Democrats. She's a former Republican and the former superintendent of public instruction. Also in that race is the Libertarian candidate who 4 years ago cracked double digits. So there's room for some different possibilities in an open seat, but unless it's a blue wave national environment, the lean of the state and Braun as the candidate for the GOP should be enough for him to win this by over 10 points. If something changes, we'll revisit it, but for now it's going to be safe. Then we've got Missouri, and it's another open seat. We've got Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe for the GOP against Crystal Quaid. She's a state representative. Kehoe won that competitive primary, and he might be the stronger choice in the general election. But if he runs into some sort of a scandal and Quaid runs a solid campaign in an open seat, this again could get a little bit more competitive, but for now, it's much more likely that it stays over 10 and goes safe for Kehoe. Then we've got North Dakota. It's yet again an open seat as Doug Burgum, he's not going to run for re-election. He could have went for one more term, even though that state has enacted a constitutional term limit for their governors, 2 4-year terms. So Burgum is out. U.S. Representative Kelly Armstrong is the Republican nominee. The Dems have Merrill Pepcorn as their nominee. And the Democrats last won election here for governor also way back in 1988. So it's been quite a while. This is a red state. So the rating here is easily going to be safe Republican. Their neighbor to the west, Montana. This has an incumbent Republican running for re-election, Greg Gianforte. He's going to face off against Democrat Ryan Bussey. Now, so far, Gianforte has declined to debate. I think that's a bad move, but I don't think it's going to end up hurting him too much. I always like to see people debate, but prior to Gianforte, Democrats did win 4 consecutive elections here for governor. So there's always a chance this does get more competitive. But with Gianforte being the incumbent, for now the expectation is this is over 10 in a safe margin. Then we've got Utah. This has another incumbent Republican, Spencer Cox. He's running for re-election. The Democrat on the ballot here is going to be Brian King. He's another state rep. And also Phil Lyman, who challenged Spencer Cox in the Republican primary. It looks like he actually is running a write-in campaign in the general. I think the incumbent is fairly popular, and regardless of who's on the ballot in the general, I think he should coast to victory by an easy over 10 safe margin. Now let's go down to the likely states. We've got one of them. That's going to be Washington, and it's going to be for the Democrats. This is an open seat to replace Jay Inslee, and it's a fairly blue state. The GOP has a big drought here. They last won for governor back in 1980. The Dems have Attorney General Bob Ferguson. The Republicans have former U.S. Rep Dave Reichert. He's going to need to have a decent amount of independent appeal, as well as bring over some Democrats. It's going to be an uphill climb. It looks like there's a debate scheduled also for Tuesday, September 10th. Again, every once in a while, voters want a change at the top of the ticket for their governor. We've seen red states elect Democrats, blue states elect Republicans. It's certainly possible it could happen in Washington. I think it's all going to be about any late movement, so this could be a race to follow in the home stretch. But for now, given the lean of the state, this is going to go to Ferguson, the Democrat, by a likely margin. Now we've got 2 states left. First, let's take a look at New Hampshire. Their primary is also coming up on the 10th, and this is another open seat. The Republicans are likely to nominate former U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte. The Democrats are going to decide between Joyce Craig and Cindy Warmington. In that primary, Craig looks like she's going to have the edge. In the general election, it's expected to be competitive. Given it's such a late primary, I think we've got to see what happens, so I'm going to leave my rating the same. That's going to be a tilt for Ayotte, the Republican. The final state is North Carolina. It's another open seat to replace Democrat Roy Cooper. For statewide races, this is fairly competitive, but Republicans usually have the edge. The governor's race is a different story. And this time, we've got Attorney General Josh Stein for the Dems and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson for the Republicans. Robinson has been viewed as controversial this entire time. He's outspoken, he's a big Trump supporter. A lot of his past remarks, especially on abortion, are coming back into this election. All Stein is really hoping to do is let Robinson beat himself. Stein is more bland and boring, and that might be enough to win this race. Now, the turnout in this race might be unpredictable. Robinson is going to get a lot of people that come out for him, but he's also going to get a lot of people coming out against him. Given the state legislature is overwhelmingly Republican, having a governor at the top of the ticket might be viewed as a balance for some of those voters. The recent polling has clearly favored Stein. I've kept this as a tilt for Stein in my last prediction, but at this point, I think it's moved at least 1 or 2 points in his direction. I don't think Robinson is out of it, but he's going to have to run a strong finish and hope things line up for him, and there's a lot of hidden vote out there that's not captured in the polling. So for now, I'm going to say this is at least 2 or 3 points, maybe even more than that, and it's going to go lean for Stein. And that's it. That would come out to 8 Republicans and 3 Democrats. No seats actually flipped to the other party. Outside of New Hampshire, North Carolina, and Washington, all the other states seem to be off the table for the time being. But as always, sometimes there's a lot of movement in the final few weeks. The campaigns, I think, have only just begun to really start heating up. Plus, we've got debates, we've got the presidential election that could also affect some of these governor's races. Maybe there's a dark horse race out there that nobody's talking about. We'll see what happens, but for now, this is the governor's prediction as of early September. So let me know in the comments, do you pretty much agree with this map, or would you make a couple of changes? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.